You all can hear me? Okay, so in continuation with the bones, we have finished. What are the bones we have finished? Clavicle and the scapula. Hope you all have read it. Okay. And then now we are going to discuss the other bones. So now we are talking about humerus. So what are the presenting parts of the humerus? We have it has upper end, shaft, and lower end, isn't it? So now always it's like the first thing what we should know is we should know the side determination to which side it belongs to. So when you hold the bone, it should be in such a way like head is pointing towards medially, okay, and then when you look at the lower end, you will have like two bony elevations. One is like it has a pulley shaped structure which is called as trochlea, which is medial, and there is one cap like structure which is called as capitulum. So with the help of these two structures, you can just assign the bone to its side, whether it is belonging to right or left side. Now, what are the presenting parts? I said head is directed, always head should be directed medially, okay. In the lower end we have to check for the capitulum and trochlea medially and capitulum laterally, and near to that trochlea whatever pointed bony elevation you are finding, you call it as medial epicondyle, and quite opposite to that we have lateral epicondyle. Now, after assigning the bone to its side, whether it is belonging to right and left side, now let us see. Now, humerus is one of the long bones what we are seeing in the arm. Okay, so any long bone will have three parts. You have to like study it under three headings, that is upper end, shaft, and lower end. Now let us talk about the upper end. So when you look at the upper end, it has head, okay, and the immediate surrounding area around the head is actually called as anatomical neck. This is neck, right? So the area which is surrounding the head immediately, you call it as anatomical neck, and the place where the humerus tends to get fractured when we are falling on outstretched hand. This point is called as surgical neck. So we have anatomical neck and then we have surgical neck. Then at the upper end we have two bony elevations. What are those? We have one is greater tubercle and then the other is lesser tubercle. Between the greater and lesser tubercle, that means near to the midline we have lesser tubercle, away from the midline we have little bigger elevation, you call it as greater tubercle. Between the two tubercles we have intertubercular sulcus, also called as bicipital groove, okay. This bicipital groove will have two lips. What are those? This is the medial lip and this is the lateral lip of bicipital groove. Okay. Now, this is when you see from the anterior aspect. From the posterior aspect also, we will see a part of greater tubercle, but not lesser tubercle because lesser tubercle is seen from anterior aspect. Now, coming to the shaft. Now, shaft will have certain borders and surfaces. We will see as we proceed. Now, in the middle of the shaft, you are finding there is a bony elevation which is called as deltoid tuberosity. Okay, deltoid tuberosity. Do you remember I told you deltoid is important muscle? Meghana, can you tell me from where the deltoid is coming?
It has three origins
Yeah.
from clavicle,
Yeah.
from acromion process, and one more from
Lower lip of the
surgical
spine
head.
of the
Okay. Oh,
scapula.
spine of scapula. Sorry.
Lower lip of the spine of the scapula, in the clavicle
Yes.
lateral one third, no, anterior
Mm.
border. Okay, so that is the
Mm.
muscle, and of course we will study it separately also. But if you know osteology well, then it becomes easy for us to remember all muscles. Okay, so in the
Mm.
shaft, the deltoid tuberosity is there, which is receiving the insertion of deltoid muscle. In Gray's anatomy, it is called as deltoideus muscle. Okay, now when you see, now this is actually like the posterior aspect. In the posterior aspect, you are finding there is a spiral line, okay, which is spiral groove or the spiral line, which is actually related to radial nerve. Okay, radial nerve. Now coming to the lower
Mm.
end. So lower end we have two lines. So from the medial epicondyle, if you trace it upwards, you call it as medial supracondylar line. Lateral epicondyle, if you trace it upwards, you call it as lateral supracondylar line. So now within this line, if you see there is one bony elevation again, which is called as medial supracondylar ridge on the medial supracondylar line, lateral supracondylar ridge on the lateral supracondylar line. Okay, then medial supracondylar line will be in continuation with the medial border. Lateral supracondylar line will be in continuation with the lateral border of the shaft of the humerus. But the medial and lateral borders will not be so clearly demarcated. Only this until the deltoid tuberosity you will find the supracondylar lines. These condylar lines, supracondylar lines are quite sharp, but the borders are very faintly visible. They are not so clearly demarcated. So that means we have one is medial border, the other is lateral border, and one more border will be in front, which is also very much arbitrary, not so clearly defined. That is the anterior border. Okay. The surface between the medial and lateral border, if you see from behind, you call it as posterior surface. In the posterior surface only, we have the spiral line or the spiral groove where the radial nerve will be passing. And this is the place where it gets fractured. It's again prone for fractures, and if in case of radial nerve injury, you will see the triceps extension is not possible because triceps and all extensor muscles are supplied by the radial nerve. Okay, of course we will elaborate much more, but for now, as the point comes, we will, because spiral groove can be a 3 marks question. Okay, surgical neck of the humerus can be again a 3 marks question. Now coming to the lower end of the humerus, in the lower end, what are we finding? One medial elevation is medial epicondyle, laterally we have lateral epicondyle. Then we have pulley-like structure which is trochlea, and cap-like structure which is capitulum. Above trochlea, there is a fossa which is called as coronoid fossa, and above capitulum, we have a fossa called as radial fossa. Basically, this trochlea and capitulum will be articulating with the ulna and radius bones. Like for example, trochlea will be articulating with the trochlear notch of ulna, capitulum will be articulating with the head of the radius. Towards the head, you will see superior end of the radius will have a cup-like depression where this capitulum comes and rests, okay, to form elbow joint. Okay, so that means whenever elbow is completely flexed, see here the coronoid process comes and rests here, and the head of the radius comes and rests here. Okay, that is the purpose of these fossae. This we will elaborate when we do elbow joint in detail. Okay. So for now you remember like trochlea is for ulna because medial bone is ulna and lateral bone is radius. Okay. So this fossa is coronoid fossa where you will see the coronoid process of the ulna comes and rests, and head of the radius will come and rest in the radial fossa in complete flexion of the elbow joint. Now when you see the posterior aspect, again you are finding two bony elevations, medial epicondyle and lateral epicondyle. Same thing what we saw from the anterior aspect. Again trochlea is continuing its visibility even behind. Here you will find there is one big fossa, that is the olecranon fossa. When we study ulnar bone, there is one more projection which is called as olecranon process. The olecranon process comes and fixes in the olecranon fossa when the elbow is extended. Okay, these fossae were occupied when the elbow is flexed, whereas when we are extending, the olecranon process of the ulna comes and rests in the olecranon fossa. These ends again we are going to discuss when we are doing elbow joint. Okay, for now you try to remember osteology points thoroughly. Okay, hope this is clear. We have discussed about upper end, we have discussed about shaft, we have discussed about lower end. Upper end, shaft and lower end. Okay. No, see the same, like this is the posterior aspect. I will discuss the muscle attachments with the help of pictures only, that will help you to understand like very easily. Okay. Now what are the various nerves which are related to the humerus bone? See the neck, this I told you, it's what neck is this? Surgical neck. Okay, immediately surrounding the head we had anatomical neck, and at the junction of upper end and shaft we have surgical neck. So whenever person is falling on outstretched hand, this area, the surgical neck, is prone for fractures. Okay, now this surgical neck is closely related to axillary nerve. Do you remember axillary nerve supplies which muscles? Okay, axillary nerve supplies deltoid. Please remember, it will be asked, what is the nerve supply of deltoid? You should be able to write axillary nerve. Okay, so whenever axillary nerve is not only deltoid but also teres minor, two muscles are supplied by axillary nerve. Okay, deltoid and teres minor. So whenever person is falling on outstretched hand, because axillary nerve is damaged, see the action of deltoid is like this. Are you able to see my abduction? 90 degrees abduction. Can you see?
Yes, ma'am.
Huh? So this 90 degrees abduction of the shoulder joint is brought about by the action of deltoid muscle. So this action will be lost. Okay. In case of axillary nerve injury, because it is winding around the surgical neck of the humerus. Just now you had seen the spiral groove in the previous slide. It's also called as radial groove. Why? Because it is closely related to radial nerve. Again, during fractures, and radial nerve is completely supplying behind. It is supplying the back of the arm, it is supplying the back of the forearm. That means extensor compartment of arm and extensor compartment of forearm. So suppose if this nerve is damaged, the extension action is lost. Okay, such a big nerve it is. We will discuss in detail exclusively. Our nerves are very important. They can come as essays. Okay, then now coming to this is the medial epicondyle and lateral epicondyle, right? So now this is posterior view. We know like because spiral groove is seen posterior. Now behind the medial epicondyle, what nerve is passing? Ulnar nerve. Okay, so again, this nerve may be damaged if the person is falling on the elbow with outstretched hand again. Okay, and ulnar nerve is actually called as musician's nerve because it is supplying the muscles of palm. It is helping us to do fine, intricate actions of the muscles of the palm. Okay, so person will not be able to do fine movements if ulnar nerve is damaged. Okay, so anything can be asked better for 3 marks. Okay, fracture at the surgical neck of the humerus, or fracture at the shaft, spiral groove, or fracture of medial epicondyle. Okay, clinical correlation you should know. Now this is the elbow joint, right? Like you are finding this is like trochlear notch, okay, olecranon process, coronoid process. Okay, so sometimes there may be fracture at the lower end of the humerus bone. Okay. Now, before I take you point wise, I'll try to show you the things diagrammatically. See, this is head, this is real bone like picture it has, right? So this is always head, because head is participating in the formation of which joint? Shoulder
Shoulder
joint.
joint.
Where is it articulating with? Glenoid cavity of the scapula, isn't it?
Scapula.
So head is covered with articular cartilage. Also, it is hyaline cartilage. Okay, and the immediate surrounding of the head you call it as anatomical neck. Okay, now you can see these bony elevations. So nice it is. This is lesser tubercle. This is greater tubercle. Between the two tubercles, we have intertubercular sulcus. Okay, and I told you one border is running like this in front. We call it as anterior border. Okay, and this is the lower end. So nice, very good picture it is. Medial epicondyle, lateral epicondyle. Okay, this is fully shaped thing that is trochlea, and it is cap-like round elevation that is capitulum. Okay, then here we have coronoid fossa above trochlea, radial fossa above capitulum for the ulna and radius bones respectively. Okay, this is from the posterior aspect. The posterior aspect, can you see this big fossa? What is this? Olecranon fossa. Olecranon process of the ulna will fix here when the elbow is extended. Okay, and this bony elevation, what you are finding on the lateral aspect is deltoid tuberosity. Okay, where the deltoid muscle is taking its insertion. Okay, the anatomical position, everything I told you. Okay, now I will take you to muscle attachments. See, yeah. See here. So a very beautiful picture we have here. I was talking about this is prochlea and this is capitulum, isn't it? So this is the coronoid process, and this will fix when the elbow is flexed in the coronoid process. Okay, this is head of the radius. We are finding it is cup-like depression, which is correspondingly fixing in the capitulum. Okay, when the elbow is flexed, you will see it will be fixing here in the radial fossa. Coronoid fossa, radial fossa, trochlea, capitulum, medial epicondyle, lateral epicondyle, medial supracondylar line, and lateral supracondylar line. Now let us see. This is of course the posterior. I will show you anterior attachments first. Exclusive pictures. Okay. Now see here, this is the anterior view. How to make out? Always look for trochlea, capitulum, and then you will be able to make out, yes, this is the anterior aspect of the bone. Okay, now what are the various, now articular cartilage is present, which is attached to the head. Then we have greater tubercle, lesser tubercle. So in the greater tubercle, you just remember, I hope you must be remembering also, we have sit muscles, no? Sit, supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor. Do you remember the origin? Above the spine of scapula, we have supraspinatus. Isn't it? Below the spine of scapula, we had infraspinatus. Then from the lateral border, upper two-thirds, we have teres minor. Okay, try to correlate. Now, origin insertion becomes easy for you. This is greater tubercle. Lesser tubercle, it is receiving the insertion of subscapularis. What is the origin of subscapularis? Costal surface of the scapula, which was resting on the ribs, second to seventh ribs, no? Where you will see two surfaces scapula had, no? The one where we had spine is dorsal surface, the one which is resting on ribs is costal surface. Okay, so there you will see the muscle is completely taking origins of scapularis. Tomorrow I hope you are writing the test. So now coming to just look at this picture. So we had just now I told you we had intertubercular sulcus, no, which has medial lip, lateral lip, and the floor of intertubercular sulcus. So now here in the medial lip you are finding the insertion of teres major. In the lateral lip we have the insertion of pectoralis major, and in the floor of the intertubercular sulcus or bicipital groove we have latissimus dorsi. You can remember there is a mnemonic for this: lady between two majors. That means in the floor we have latissimus dorsi, medially also major, laterally also major. Medial one is teres major and lateral one is pectoralis major. So that is the attachment of the upper end of the humerus, that is short. Deltoid tuberosity, we know it is related to which muscle? Deltoid. Quite opposite to that, we have the insertion of coracobrachialis. Coracobrachialis was coming along with the short head of biceps from coracoid process
Because
of
it was
scapula.
coracoid process.
Yes. Coracoid process of scapula. Teres major was coming again from the lateral border below the origin of teres minor, isn't it? It means lower one third of the lateral border. Okay. Latissimus dorsi was coming from the inferior angle, right? Pectoralis major, you have seen from the clavicle, no? Anterior surface. Okay. Whatever we have covered, I am telling you that only, and of course it comes from sternum also. You have finished thorax, isn't it?
So,
From the manubrium and the body of sternum, it takes its origin, pectoralis major. And insertion is the lateral lip of the bicipital groove. Now, coming to the, this is the upper part of the upper half of the shaft. Now, coming to the lower half of the shaft, we are finding the origin of which muscle? Brachialis. Brachialis. Okay. So, this condylar line, what is the name I told you? Medial supracondylar line. So medial supracondylar line is giving origin to pronator teres. This is the medial epicondyle. It gives origin to all flexor muscles. Flexors are this, okay, towards the palm, whatever we have are flexors. Behind whatever we have are extensors. From the lateral epicondyle, we have all extensors coming. We call it as common extensor origin. Okay, this is common flexor origin and this is common extensor origin. Now above this supracondylar line, we have extensor carpi radialis longus. Okay, as you move up this lateral supracondylar line, above the extensor carpi radialis longus, we have the origin of brachioradialis. Okay, so these are the muscle attachments what we are seeing from anterior view. Now let us see the muscle attachments from posterior view. This is again like greater tubercle only beta where you have sit muscles, supraspinatus, infraspinatus and teres minor. Lesser tubercle is not visible here. Okay, this immediately close to the anatomical neck we have the capsular ligament of the shoulder joint. Now, just now we have studied about spiral groove which was related to radial nerve. Above that we have the attachment of lateral head of triceps. Triceps will have three origins. One origin we have studied with scapula. From where? Infraglenoidal tubercle we have seen the long head of triceps. Infraglenoidal tubercle. Okay, lateral head is coming
Lateral angle.
above the spiral line and below this complete posterior surface between the medial and lateral borders, complete posterior surface in the lower two-thirds is giving origin to medial head of triceps. Like that, we have three heads, isn't it? That is the medial head, lateral head, and the long head. Long head from infraglenoidal tubercle, lateral head is above spiral line, medial head is below the spiral line, complete posterior surface. Apart from that, now this is the posterior aspect of the lateral epicondyle which is giving origin to Anconius. Anconius. Okay. So if you can just try to like just open the book and try to just practice the diagrams of bones. Automatically you will remember all muscles. Or at least practice in your brain like where is the muscle and what are the origins and insertion points. Okay. That is very, very important. Muscle attachments. So what did we discuss? We have discussed head, neck, greater tubercle, lesser tubercle, intertubercular sulcus. It is smooth and we know it is articulating with the glenoid cavity to form the shoulder joint. Everything has been covered with this, which is described like in your textbook. Okay, but not only everything. This is head, which is quite smooth, rounded. It forms 1/3 of the sphere. Is covered with articular cartilage, which is nothing but hyaline cartilage. Usually thicker in the center and thinner towards the periphery. Okay, this is the anatomical neck, which is generally like 1 or 2 centimeters below the anatomical neck. We have surgical neck, which is related to axillary neck. Okay, and also posterior and anterior circumflex humeral vessels. This we will discuss when we are doing axillary artery. Okay. Everything I told you already. Three borders also we have discussed. Anterior border is RP3. Take you to bone. More here. This border in the middle will be anterior border. Then this is medial border and lateral border. Between the anterior border and medial border, the surface will be anteromedial surface. Between the anterior border and lateral border, the surface would be the anterolateral surface. And behind, when you see, this is the medial border, medial supracondylar line, lateral border, lateral supracondylar line, and whole of the surface from behind will be posterior surface. Okay, so three borders and three surfaces. Okay, so the what are the three borders? Medial border, lateral border, and anterior border. Then anteromedial surface, anterolateral, and the posterior surfaces. Okay, muscle attachments related to the nerve, everything I told you. Just read once in your textbooks. Okay, then ossification is for our general information, not so much important for exam point of view. So, what is primary ossification center? Center which is appearing during
Intrauterine.
intrauterine life, that is during 8th week of intrauterine life. Okay, so the first ossification center appears at shaft. Okay, then for upper end we have three ossification centers. For head it is appearing during first year, for greater tubercle third year, for lesser tubercle fifth year. All of them will join and they form one complete round one epiphysis by seventh year, and it goes and joins with the shaft by 20th year. That means upper end is the growing end of the bone, because lower end is going and fusing with the shaft by 18th year. Okay, that means upper end is going and joining with the diaphysis little late. That means upper end of the humerus is the growing end of the bone. See, for lower end we have, like for capitulum, the ossification center is appearing. These are all secondary ossification centers. Second year, then for trochlea 10th year, medial lateral epicondyle 12th year, medial epicondyle 6th year. Okay, that is capitulum, medial part of trochlea and lateral epicondyle. They all together fuse by 14th year. Okay, so this will together join with shaft with 16 to 17 weeks. So that is medial epicondyle goes and joins with the shaft by 18th year. Just remember, almost for all the bones we are finding primary ossification center is appearing during 8th week only. Just for long bones you should know like which is the actively growing end of the bone, whether it is upper end or lower end. Okay. And radius and ulna together if we study it will be more better, so that I will do these two bones together tomorrow. Okay.
Okay.
So we'll stop here.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank
Okay.
you. Bye, ma'am.
Okay.